Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're still watching Nile TV International. We're still having a special coverage on the American-Israeli-Iranian war and the latest developments on the ground, and also we'll be talking more about the media coverage concerning the war. And we have all the pleasure to have with us here in the studio Dr. Mohamed Hashem. He's a professor of mass communication. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Hashem.
Good morning, and thanks for having me again. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Doctor. Doctor, we would like to start first by asking you about the how do you assess the media coverage so far of the American-Israeli-Iranian war?
Well, it depends which media you're looking at. So for me, because I'm heavily involved in the media, I look at things like Australian news, the American news, and the mainstream news, and also the non-mainstream news, and also social media. And I keep going back and forth until I try to find what makes sense. So I usually watch a lot of ABC Australia. That's where I get a lot of my information from. But I also like to watch Sky News, and I also like to watch the Fox News. So you need to watch the left and right to see the opinions and what's happening. And then I go to social media and I try to pick out things from social media. The more I see truth arise again, that's when I come up with the conclusion that this could be the correct information. Yes.
So they are not biased, these channels?
Some can be, depending on what you're looking at. They can be biased, depending on what they're after. And also, you need to remember the American media has been talking about Iran since the late 70s. Since Iran got in power, the new regime got in power. The Hollywood movies and all sorts of rhetoric have sort of given the American people an idea of, Iraq being, the enemy and stuff like that. So something like this, a lot of skeptics are saying the Americans didn't sell the war as well as they did in the Iraq war. And the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, initially didn't agree to help the Americans in the war. Unlike Tony Blair in 2003, he was very willing to help George Bush. So there's a reason for that. There's a reason why, and even Spain didn't agree to help the Americans with some of the help needed last week. But the American people are, I think they're divided at the moment from what they say in the media. And I think a lot of them are thinking about things like oil prices. If this war goes on, would the oil prices go up or not?
So it's economic reasons also behind this.
But do they necessarily care what's going on? It depends how conscious they are, but I think they've already been fed a lot of bias towards the Middle East in general. So when something like this happens, they don't necessarily know what's going on. They just think, oh, the oil prices are going to go up. There could be, more problems in the region. Therefore, other prices might go up, or other, problems might happen to the American people. Yes.
Dr. Hashem, how important the role of the media coverage of any conflict, and how was that role highlighted in the past few decades?
Yeah, it's very interesting because if you look at, say, the Vietnam War, and then you look at things that happened in the 80s, the civil war, say, in Lebanon, and then you go to the war of Iraq, and even before that, 1991, the Gulf War, the first Iraq War, 91, where the Vice President Mike Pence turned around and said last week that was a good war, 1991, because nothing happened for 10 years after that. But the Americans do admit that the war in Iraq 2003 was a mistake, weapons of mass destruction and all that, and a lot has happened since then. So anyway, the different coverage is that we can see what's going on now. Everyone has a camera. Everyone has access to 24-hour access to internet.
So it's different.
Very different. Back then we had to wait for one channel or two channels, and sometimes you didn't have time to watch the news, so you'd have to rely on a friend telling you. You'd have to believe them. Now we've got access, handheld mobiles. We've got 24-hour access all day, all night to switch around and check it. We're watching it live. As it happens. They're very different. Very different.
Of course. And we want to talk more about the effect of media coverage in shaping the public opinion globally.
Yes, that's very a good question also, because again, you're looking at films, you're looking at also the Gaza issue. So what happened with Gaza over the last 2 years, again, public opinion changed a little bit, but then what's happening in the West at the moment is a lot of people are getting sick of and tired of the protests. So what's happening is there's a patriotic movement happening in the West where they've had enough of people protesting for Palestine because they're looking at them as unpatriotic. They're walking around in America and Canada, they're in England, holding the Palestinian flag, but not holding the flag of the country. So a lot of the people, again, the major majority, are getting sick of the protests. So when this happens, they're like, oh, another war in the Middle East, who cares? It's, that's from the West.
Yeah.
But obviously in this region, I think people are looking more into details, exactly what's happening. And obviously a lot of the GCC countries like Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf countries, some of them are getting bombed, attacked. Civilian and military bases have been attacked. So it depends on who you're talking to. People in the region are thinking about details. People in the West are probably thinking about the bigger picture. When's it going to end, or how long is it going to go for? Oil prices are going up, so, you know, stuff like that. The Chinese are probably looking at is crude oil going to go up or not, because the Chinese actually by 96% of the crude oil. So the crude oil is the raw oil that's taken from Iran and turned into something else. The barrel oil is what everybody buys for petrol every day. So the Chinese have a big stake in this. So how long can the Chinese allow this to happen without interfering? Because if this keeps going, they could lose a big stake of their crude oil. So the Chinese is something to look out for, definitely.
Yeah. And how can the public or normal people differentiate between the true news and the fake news or rumors?
I think it's very different. It's very difficult. If you're not a media professional and you're not doing this for a living, I think it's quite difficult because you're getting bombarded by continuous, if you want to call it propaganda or persuasions, constantly. You've got TikTok, you've got Facebook, you've got all of these constantly giving you posts and feeds, and you don't know what's true and what isn't true. The only way to find out is to keep searching, keep flicking through. I spend, you know, a good 8 hours a day doing that because it's my job. But if it's not someone's job and they just hear a rumor that, you know, Iran's going to negotiate with America, or the son of Khomeini has been killed, as like what happened a few days ago, they're like, they've killed the father and then now they've killed the son. And then 2 days later they're like, no, they didn't kill the son. So you need to keep going around in circles until you hear the same thing over and over again. That's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah. Dr. Hashem, how is the media used by countries as a tool of political and diplomatic effect during conflicts or crises?
It's interesting, obviously. It depends what the country wants. So, say we talk about America, or Australia or Canada, we can say that there's a lot of sarcasm being used. One, I guess to make the public realize that there's no danger on them, they're far away. But at the same time also ridicule this part of the world to make it sound like it's not important. And this side of the world, like in Egypt and other countries, obviously we need to, the President is doing a great job in Egypt to tell us that we're safe, nothing's going to happen to Egypt, because we're very close by. So every country, depending on the geographic location where they are, would have different things to say to the public. So China would be saying something different, North Korea would be saying something different. It all depends on how close they are to the region and how much knowledge they have of the region. So I was listening to that Piers Morgan. I watch a lot of Piers Morgan, and he always has the guy called Dr. Morandi on. Dr. Morandi is like the spokesman for the Tehran University, and Dr. Morandi always turns around and says, we don't have a problem. If you keep attacking us, we're going to attack the Persian Gulf. Now the Persian Gulf is next to Iraq. It's where all the oil reserves are, and that's when the big problem is going to happen. So, a threat like that, who would be interested in hearing that? Everyone, the whole world. But small details like, I mean, everybody cares about how many protesters were killed, stuff like that. But it depends on what's important to the region.
Yeah. Dr. Hashem, actually this question is related to the previous one. We want to talk more about the intensive media coverage and its role in escalating or calming countries. Yes.
Again, it depends which countries. So if it's countries like the UAE or Jordan, or countries that are actually getting hit. So a lot of these countries were not expecting to get hit, especially in the civilian areas. So places like Dubai have never been hit, you know. Bahrain, all these countries that have just been in peace.
We've heard about Bahrain's yesterday.
Yeah.
Drones in Bahrain also.
Exactly, and even Cyprus. They even there's an attack on Cyprus. Nobody hears anyone attacking Cyprus since back in the Ottoman days, 100 years ago. So a lot of these countries are going to be watching the news very carefully and hoping to be safe and not knowing what's going to happen next.
Yes, Dr. Hashem, did the media help in highlighting the dangers of expanding the regional conflicts?
In which way, like?
I mean, the media help in highlighting the dangers of expanding the regional conflicts so far.
I think so. Again, it depends who they're talking to, but if you're going to, like in Egypt, we get just enough information to let us know that we're safe. And obviously, again, Egypt's doing a great job in protecting civilians, whether Egyptian or international. So again, it depends which media. But say the American media is sort of going full throttle. You know, every day Trump is getting out there on the press conferences and saying, "We're going ahead. We're not going to stop. The only way for the Iranians to be free is to fully surrender."
Yeah.
And then you watch English news, and they're saying, "Well, there might be talks between."
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about the alleged statements yesterday about the resumption of the American-Iranian talks, and that this was upon a request from Washington.
Exactly.
But those alleged statements were refuted by America, by President Trump.
Exactly.
So tell us more about the role of such rumors in the course of war and in the course of any conflict.
Yeah, exactly. So these kind of, this news is probably BBC. And then the Americans would turn around and say, no, this didn't happen.
Even BBC we cannot trust now.
We don't know. You know, that side of the world says, oh, the Iranians spoke to a third country who spoke to the CIA, and they're going to have negotiations with America. And then 5 minutes later, you hear Trump saying, there's no negotiations, we're going ahead. The war is going ahead.
He said there will not be any negotiations until full surrender.
Full surrender.
From unconditional surrender.
Unconditional surrender, exactly. And then at night you hear Piers Morgan, uncensored, saying the Iranians are saying, we don't want to negotiate, we want to go all the way. Let the ground troops come in. So a lot of I think the Prime Minister now in Iran is saying, we're welcoming the ground troops to come in. You know, it's a bit confusing, and I think confusion is a big part of media. You know, you've got to be careful about what's confusing you and what makes sense. So, yeah.
Dr. Hashem, we've talked about the effect of war on oil prices, as you said at the beginning of our interview, but we want to talk more about this effect on stock markets and also the public opinion in the Middle East.
So let's begin with the public opinion of America. So when the Iraq War happened, I always go back to the Iraq War 2003, not the Gulf War 91. The people were all for the war because of obviously September 11 and then weapons of mass destruction, and then yes, let's go to war. This one here wasn't sold well. You know, we just recovered from people have just recovered from the Gaza war. I mean, Iran has always been the enemy of the West for so long, okay? So people are sort of ready for it. But they weren't ready for it on the weekend. Trump started this war on a weekend. Now, a lot of skeptics say, why did you start the war on the weekend? If you did it on Monday, would you have not got public approval? There's also the Congress in America, that Senate and the House, right? And they need to come up with a decision whether to go to war or not. But I think Trump overstepped that. So the public opinion in America is divided. In the Middle East, it's also, I think, divided. I think the Middle East at the moment just wants peace, especially places like Egypt. They don't want it to go further into Turkey, or definitely not here. And I think it's a very important thing to let the West know also that countries like Egypt are very safe, and we have a great president here doing a great job looking after its people and the borders. And it's something that people need to know, because in the West, a lot of the media is always like, it's chaos in the Middle East. it's gonna go spread in the region. It's getting out of hand, and a lot of people are calling me asking me, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, it's fine. Egypt's very safe. The aeroplanes are still working. The airports are still working. The airspace is still working." So I think the opinion of the Middle East is to please stop this war. We don't want it to go further, especially if it goes into Turkey and other regions. Yes.
You've just mentioned that there were misinformation spreaded all over the countries.
Yes.
And asking you about is Egypt safe or not?
Yes.
Tell us more, how can we prove to the world that we are a safe country, there is nothing here, using social media, or what?
I think it's very important, like to look at what you need to look at in court. When people go to court, that you have to see the evidence of the other person. Whenever you go to court, the judge always gives you the opportunity to see what the plaintiff or the defendant is giving you. So it's very important for the media people here on this side of the world to look at what the West is saying about this side of the world. So you need to see what they're saying and try to answer them. So the problem in the West is they're saying things like the Middle East. It's like it's one thing, you know what I mean? You know, your neighbor's different to you. Two neighbors are different to each other. So when they say the word Middle East, they lump it all into one thing, and they make it all sound exactly the same, even though many Middle Eastern countries don't have relations with Iran for so long. So we need to let people know that not everybody is dealing with Iran. Iran is far away from certain countries. So I think you need to watch a lot of, people in the Middle East need to watch a lot of Western news and be able to answer the stereotypes or the perception of what they think it is. And then when people come to places like Egypt, they find it's very safe and very nice people here. They go, "Oh wow, I had no idea." You know, and that's why a lot of that work, like you said, is very important. To do, yes.
Dr. Hashem, in general, how censorship impacts what the public sees and reads?
It depends. I don't know if there's much censorship happening at the moment of this war. I think with the Gaza war and this war especially, I don't think there's much censorship. They're showing a lot of things. I think censorship starts to happen anywhere in the world. There is censorship in the West also. It happens everywhere. It starts to happen when people start bombarding social media with bad images or terrifying images, and I guess people in control of these media outlets don't know how to control the images. You know, you don't know who's watching. Are children watching dead people? Are watching the horrific war scenes? So I think censorship happens because of horrific scenes. I think the world is not used to seeing what we're seeing now. Watching the war live in Gaza was very difficult for many people. It's never really happened before, you know. The Vietnam War, the Gulf War in '91, the Iraq War, all these wars, we saw them in Hollywood later on. But when you saw Gaza, it was live and it was real. It wasn't Hollywood anymore. So I think people are still getting used to that idea. So I think censorship is being used to curtail to stop a lot of the
rumors.
And rumors too. Exactly.
Dr. Hashem, I would like to know your expected scenarios for the development of that conflict.
It's so 50-50. You don't know what's going on. The Iranians are very confident, but I guess Saddam Hussein was also very confident when the Americans said they're going to come and get him. He said, "Come and get me, I'm going to throw you into the sea," and all this sort of stuff. The Iranians are saying the same thing. The Americans sound confident. You don't know what's going to happen. And sometimes you ask, why is America attacking them? Didn't Trump say in the 12-day war a while ago that they've dismantled the nuclear power? Now he's saying, why is he attacking now? So what's going to happen? I believe it's going to stop soon. Whether the regime falls or not, I'm not sure. The Iranian regime falls or not, I'm not sure. But I think it's going to stop soon. I think it can't keep going because there's too many people involved now. And then you're going to have places like Saudi and Jordan and Qatar. They're going to want their own revenge. And they're going to want to start attacking Iran. You know. So where's this going to end? So I think eventually it has to end very soon. I don't think it's going to get prolonged.
We hope so. Dr. Hashem, is there still a chance of diplomatic settlement?
Between
America and
Israel
Iran and Israel?
I think so. I think eventually something has to happen. Even though, you know, Iran is adamant at saying that they'll never make peace and all this sort of stuff, I think they're going to have to. You know, we don't know. We don't know much about Iran. I don't feel. A lot of countries don't have diplomatic ties with Iran. They don't have embassies in Iran. Iran doesn't have embassies in their country. It's been like that for a long time, for many countries. So a lot of people don't actually know what's happening in Iran. You hear mixed opinions about life in Iran. Is it very, you know, sort of secular? Is it not? Is it a dictatorship? Is it not? A lot of people say different things. Some people say it's the highest amount of women getting educated in the world in Iran. And then some people say they treat women bad in Iran. So you don't know the truth.
Yes.
You don't know the truth. But I definitely think the best way forward would be to have some sort of negotiation. I was listening to an Iranian analyst from London the other day, and he was saying, why not negotiate to the Iranians?
Yes.
But I think they will. Like, how did the 12-day war stop? It went on, the 12-day war a while ago. It stopped. It went on for 12 days and it stopped. So what happened? How come it stopped? There must have been some sort of negotiation. So I think this is there's going to be some sort of negotiation, but it must be a bigger one.
But I think this time it's different because the assassination of the Supreme leader
Khomeini.
Yes. Do you believe that this assassination will complicate the diplomatic role?
I thought it would. When I heard the news of the assassination, I thought, wow, it's a big deal, you know.
Big deal for the Iranians.
For the Iranians, for them, yeah. But he was 86 years old. He was very old. He was very sick. So who knows what they were doing? Maybe he's too old. I thought the reaction from the Iranians would be stronger after he got killed, but that didn't really happen. The reaction from them wasn't that strong. Yeah. So. And I think the son has taken over. And now people are saying the son is different to the father. He's more aggressive and he's more, that's what they're saying. So who knows? And then you hear on the other news that the son got killed. And then, no, he didn't get killed.
Our topic today about the
fake news
the fake news and the media coverage.
It's very interesting. I mean, it's become like entertainment. You know, you're sitting there watching different parts, and you're making up your own idea, making up your own mind, and it's an interesting time to be alive.
Sure. Dr. Hashem, how dangerous it is for some media outlets to deploy certain language and to hide the truth?
Very dangerous. Very dangerous for locals living in certain countries. So say you have Middle Eastern people living in Australia, in Canada and America, and certain languages have been said about the Middle East, bad language, negative language. What's going to happen is they're going to get punished from the local population in America or Canada or in Australia. So if misinformation is being given about what's happening in the Middle East, which a lot of it does happen, unfortunately, you get people harassed. You know, things like Islamophobia arises in the West. Problems happen, clashes happen. Also, misinformation helps spur things along, like the war. You know, if at the end of the day, if the American people don't want this war to happen, eventually Trump will have to stop. There's been a lot of skeptics also that say that Trump tried to beat the Houthis in Yemen, and he couldn't. In 2 weeks. It was very difficult terrain for the American troops and stuff like that, so he had to stop. So people are saying Iran is much bigger than Yemen, Iran is much bigger than Gaza, so are you going to be able to deal with Iran? So I think misinformation is an interesting topic. We have a thing in Australia called Media Watch. So they have the media all day, Australia has the media all day, in the news, the newspaper make the media, and then once a week they have a program called Media Watch. So Media Watch goes through all the different media in Australia, and it gives you some sort of critique on what was true, what wasn't, what made sense, what wasn't. So it's like a watchdog watching over the media, and it's very interesting to watch the Media Watch, to tell you this journalist used exaggerated words. This journalist used different words, and it opens up your eyes to how media can be manipulated. Yes. Yes.
Dr. Hashem, how did Israel affect the American decision making and why?
Again, it's a hard one, because everyone says that, a lot of people say that Israel is telling America to do it. And then when you hear Trump, he's saying, no, I'm doing it because I'm doing it on my own. So it's a hard one. People say obviously it's Israel's war versus Iran, because America doesn't have any problems with Iran because of the distance. You know, Iran has never hit America.
Yes.
But Iran has hit or retaliated back to Israel, and it's closer to Israel. So is America doing it to help Israel, or is America doing it for their own, you know, their own concern? And at the same time, what's the benefit if this war keeps going in Iran? What's the benefit for America? Is the alliance between Israel and America that strong that they need to get involved together or not? So there's a lot of things coming up, and a lot of criticism coming up too, from the American people, from the Congress itself. But they're not hiding anything. The Americans aren't saying we're doing this on our own. They're saying this is an Israeli-US war, and we're doing it together as partnership. And I don't think that's really happened before with US and in that clear format, you know.
Dr. Mohamed Hashem, Professor of Mass Communication, thank you very much for coming to our studio today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure as always, and nice to see you again.
Thank you, Doctor.
Great questions, amazing questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, short break, and we'll be back.